necessarily supported or endorsed by the owners, managers, or advertisers of this station. While we encourage all to share their opinions, we do not support any comments that may slander, discriminate, or otherwise offend anyone, and we insist that you refrain from any such statements.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is man? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmsankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear Nor Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is man? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmsankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear Nor Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Good evening and welcome to Fear Nor Favor. Now, before I get into the meat of my program for tonight, I think I would like to call my beautiful granddaughter and wish her well. Let the world see me wishing her happy 4th birthday. Huh? So let us do that in quick order. That is basically my therapy. Quite a bit we'll have to discuss. So let me give my Zaya. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm alright.
Hi, Zaya. I want the world to see me.
My birthday.
Yes, I want the world to see me wishing you happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you, Grandpa.
How your day has been going? What have you done for the day?
I was opening my gifts.
You open your gifts?
Yeah.
You went out to eat,
I went out to eat.
and then we're about to cut the cake.
We're about to cut the cake. Look, I got the knife here.
Are you going to save a piece of cake for me?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go to the spa today?
Wait, though. It's a secret. Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I won't. The whole of St. Kitts is looking at you though. Give a wave and a smile, a special smile.
Kids. Love you, thank you. Love you, Grandpa, thank you.
Okay, good. And I'll see you soon in St. Kitts, right? For the second time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, take care of yourself.
Call you back.
Okay, we'll call.
Call you back when we go to St.
Yes.
All right, Dad.
I'll call you after the show as well, so don't go to sleep, okay? Love you. Okay, bye. That is my source of therapy. My sweet little Zaya Nital. Now, we have quite a few things that we would want to talk about. I listened to a program and I listened persons called into that program. This was in reference to the interview that our good Prime Minister did. And some people felt that maybe it ought not to have been done. My understanding is that it was done even before that particular day. Some persons thought that it was done on the same day that they had the coronation. I want to support the PM in what he did. We are not free, nor are we comfortable under the monarchy with King Chad III in power. I don't see anything wrong with him doing that. The only thing I maybe thought could have been improved upon was to have him on national television and look him in the eyes and say to him that we'll be trying desperately to come from under that umbrella. That would have satisfied me more. Some people claim, well, imagine I got a party and I invite you to it, and you come into the party to tell me that you don't like me. Nobody looking at it from the other side. Those people, for many years, disadvantaged black people, disadvantaged Kittians. Let me be specific. And then got the gall and the audacity to come and invite us to witness their empire. That came to a great extent from our contribution, forced contribution. And if they had the audacity to do that, then by right, without using any euphemism, we had a right to let him know on worldwide TV that we'll be working expeditiously to come from under that filthy umbrella. Nothing wrong with that. They have absolutely no regard for us. If he cannot get the nerves, the stomach, to put an apology together and apologize to us for the disadvantage that his people, including him, would have dished out to us. I really, that sounds very, very calculating. He cannot make an apology. He could say, well, maybe it wasn't something good, but that's the furthest he would go. And that is very unfortunate. What would it take for King Chad III to offer us an apology? We're not talking about reparation as yet, because this thing must be sequential. Giving people reparation without outwardly expressing remorse equates to almost nothing. What is so difficult for King Chad III to say sorry on behalf of his people and by extension himself for ill-treating Kittitians? What is so hard? And then we now want to play a kind of foolish, awkward game and say that our Prime Minister had no reason to say that at that particular time. Well, our Prime Minister would be a hypocrite if he got to go hide behind the passage of time, hide behind some mask in order to let King Chad III know for a fact that we are not comfortable remaining under any umbrella with him. And without any euphemism, say it as harshly as you can. Let your eyes make four with his and say to him, if we could have gone yesterday, we would have gone. Just to give him a sense of urgency with which we really want to get from under that filthy umbrella. They're not doing anything for us. They're not doing anything for us. And when fellow Kititians could have call-in programs and try to admonish our Prime Minister for saying what he said, I thought that it was rather an opportune time for him to do that. And I wish that it could have been a little more caustic. Well, sometimes we just have to let people have it. How much more can we pretend that all is well when all is not well? We got to rally behind our people. What are they giving us? A child in kindergarten could do the addition. Not like you need any computer, any special software. It is simple, it's next to nothing. The benefits to be had. What would we miss if we were to leave under that umbrella now? What would we miss? Somebody claimed that if Kititians were stranded down in Africa there where they have the issues, and we might have been in a position for them to help our stranded Kititians out there. But I never hear more. And that is a sign that we must stay on against our conscience. Associate strongly. Do not express any dissent. All because someday, somewhere, a Kititian might be stranded and we need the assistance of either the Americans or the British to get us back to safety. I mean, what we do? That is so shallow. So shallow. That could be a reason for us to hold on. Hold on to what? Well, we got to have intelligent people around here. We have quite a high percentage per capita of mental acuity. And this must be reflected in the things we put out there in the public's domain. People out of order. And I would like to say publicly, Dr. Joe, you are right. And it should be played every day, continually. If they could have their own philosophy, don't complain, don't explain. I mean, what is that? They have so many moral issues, so many nebulous moral issues under that umbrella. You think Meghan getting that kind of treatment because she's a bad person? Yes, she's a B person, and the B is for black. And that is what eating them out at the core, why she has to go through so much. We're not foolish. You connect the dots and you could see. They felt like he should have not joined in matrimony with a black person. And they're using all kind of subtlety to try and embarrass him and embarrass her. Well, only a strange, very strange world where Satan trying to correct sins. Very, very strange world. And we ought not to put up much longer with people of that kind of mindset. You can't apologize. You cannot appreciate and fully accept and embrace a black woman to be the wife of Harry. And then when come to repatriation or sending back things to Africa that they took up, well, they had the power to do that. They would never do that. They would never do that. I understand some of the jewels that might have adorned the various assets that they place so much emphasis on would have been of that value because they might have come out of Africa. So repatriation, they will never do that. They will never return things that they plunder and stole and do whatever they did way back then. Because they don't explain, and that's it. Reparation, they have so many forms in which they can do that. But yet, the willingness. And then we have some people around here like coconut, brown on the outside and white on the inside, expressing and holding sides against our Prime Minister because of the narrative and utterances that he would have made that might have touched certain persons wrong. They say they carried out a poll, and the majority of persons, but I don't know about the majority of persons because we don't know about the sample, we don't know about the quantum of the sample, and we don't know about the quality of the persons. We don't even know if it actually was conducted. But they're telling us that the indication, the inference that they drew from the petition aspect of the polls indicated that the sign that persons here want to stay under the filthy umbrella. Why should they think so? We need more information. The polls tell that we have people in St. Kitts who would like to ask a few questions of him. I would like to get his number, call him live, and ask him how did he go about. What is the reliability of that survey that he carried out? Are there anybody who took part in it that we can call and ascertain that yes, and these were the questions that were asked? I don't know whether the form is a reputable one or whatever, but reputable firms won't hide behind our clouds and just bring your output and push it in people's face. There ought to have been a chronological sequence as to how things happen. You just send out a questionnaire, or you're claiming that it was just telephone interview. You just went in the directory and got some numbers for some Kittitian numbers and call them. Kittitians, we think it's got Spanish, French, people from all over the world here. So you might have taken up the directory, make a call, and the person you're talking to cannot represent any cross section of St. Kitts. So we need an explanation and if possible, an apology for publicizing such information without proper explanation as to how it was done. To me, you're giving the world the impression I think it's people backward. You're giving the world the impression that we're backward. We want to cling on to something that would have been our downfall and the demise of so much of our people before. But we're supposed to embrace that. I'm not in favor of those sort of stuff. And I'm very happy that the PM did it. I'm not 100% satisfied because I think it should have been more caustic and more in your face. If you got the audacity to invite us to show us how you have built an empire from our slave labor, where we should have the resistance and the bold-facedness to let you know that we are not comfortable going forward with you, King Chad III. Let us take a break and come back.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is man? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKitts.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your calls. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Fear No Favor. Another issue I want to touch is it time for us to develop standards and qualifications for persons who are attempting to preach the gospel in a leadership position? You see, because more and more, we'll have to be turning to our churches. They have to play a more integral part in the shaping of our society. We know that we're experiencing some challenges currently, and going forward, they're not just going to evaporate and disappear. We'll have to be examining them and seeing how best we can. The church is going to play an integral part. Now, we have things happening on the outside. And the internet would have caused us to be immediate neighbors. Anything happen anywhere, it's very easy for it to lodge a spot in the grey matter that lies between our two ears. Easily. And just like how we have music out there and the lyrical content would influence our people way of thinking and the way that they behave as well. Information about what pastors and preachers and priests doing out there would also impact the minds of our people, especially the young ones. They might well want to go to a church because they find that that is where they could get some help. When they read about Jim Jones, when you read about the guy who instructed people to starve themselves to death and then they would go to heaven. They're hearing about these things. And then when we have certain local pastors behaving in such a way that people question whether or not that is churchish, just to use a nouns for the occasion. Should that be happening in church? Is that conduct and behavior conducive for that environment? The question is, could any and everybody just get a building, a space, and start to preach and indoctrinate our people? Just like how you have to apply for a license to do certain things, carry on or conduct certain businesses, then you have to carry maybe a certificate of qualification for you to perform in that area. What does a person have to present? And by the way, do they have to get business licenses to open and conduct church? It is profit making, and we know that. They pick up the collections, and sometimes substantially as well. How do we monitor? Could anyone, I don't, maybe somebody could call me and tell me, message me 665-4508 or call 4660903 and let us have a discussion. Because I don't believe that is everybody in those positions, from the interest of the general public, is in the best possible position to conduct churches. Sometimes some people don't want to touch issues pertaining to churches. We have so many different denominations. Sometimes the difference is just a letter or two. Maybe just a matter of time before they start to carry each other to court. To say that they might have copyrighted that and you're using that. No, but we have to take it serious. You have so many different interpretations to the biblical content that persons must be of a certain capacity, mental acuity, to make sure their interpretation or interpretations do not deviate. You must not have such a high standard deviation from the mean. How can we get control of that? Some people like say, well, just accept the message and forget about the messenger. If the messenger misinterprets the message, the intended message, but therefore the wrong message would be sent. And the wrong message could hold a permanent space in the brain of other people. Because when you examine it carefully, You start out, 40 people started out in Church A. They got a nucleus of principles and everything else that they believe in. You have 3 of them now, for some reason, realizing that is not the place for me to continue to be. Well, all can be well. What was it that caused these 3 persons to break away? And then they form a competing denomination. So I would like to say now, the principles, nucleus of principles for Church A would have a distinct area for Church B because these people broke away. Maybe they might have had 100 things and they don't believe in 13% of it. So you might have 87% overlapping and 13% that belong to B only. But I mean that that same 13 there would be A only because you got the overlapping area of 87%. Anybody would ever step in and try to examine, interview these people and find out what their thought was not principled from a biblical perspective to be continued to be delivered to the congregation like that. Because sometimes it's just not the 3 persons who just move out. You have other persons who would move out with them and go under their leadership. Then that would start to create a problem. Because thereafter, out of that B congregation, you might have people moving out to form C. So something about B now doesn't have the value to those who moving on. We don't even want to say, well, it's just an opportunity to pick up collection and make some money. Let us leave that as last resort. Let us just stick to the teaching, the conducting of the services. Some people might not like it. You might have a 2-in-1 pastor where there's a church figure for the church conduct, church behavior. And outside of that, obliquely, they get caught up in social living that are non-conducive to the church principles and policies. But if you check the amount of different denominations that we have denomination within denominations. We have subsets. Sometimes you have one circle, then another circle in it, then another circle inside the circle, then another. So many subsets. What is the reason for that? And how could we start giving shape? How can we start giving shape to the conducting of church services? And who can carry out these roles? Unless we don't just start deviating. You got 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviations, 3 standard deviations, 4 or 5 standard deviations. So that statistical bell shape that we ought to produce from a normal distribution would be skewed terribly, either to the left or to the right. When it is symmetrical, you have the mid, mode, and median all at one spot. But you could imagine you have a situation where the mode is completely different to the mean, and the mean completely different to the median within a church environment based on principles, biblical teachings. We have to do something. We cannot continue like this. It is unfortunate, but I believe you must be of a certain capacity to deliver the content of the Bible. After you would have understood it reasonably well. I'm not saying you gotta be a English student, even though that could go a long way. Because if you go to a sermon and you hear the leader butchering the Queen's language or the King's language, or standard English, so to speak, it would give you a kind of mindset. How much could I really listen to this person? Those are things that would go through a person's minds. How much attention I must really pay to this individual? Could I be in the congregation and you describe me as present but absent? You're just physically present, but you're absent because you're not convinced that the messenger is qualified enough to bring that message. And that is why when you're doing things like research, you have all kind of information on the internet. And one thing they will tell you, they need peer-reviewed information, meaning that persons of similar capacity would have looked at what you have to offer, your narrative, and agree that, yes, that can hold up. Because anybody could inject an opinion. And it's very easy to suggest solutions when you don't know much about the problem. That is why when you're doing your research, you have to come up with a lot of citations. Some of them might be outdated, and maybe that is why they qualify their policies. And say that you must come up with things within the past 5 years. Within the past 5 years. When last somebody from biblical teaching suggests to us that for the past 50 years, there have been some gaps, there have been some erring on the side of proper interpretation. And as such, somebody going to do some research, you think can just be a review over a period of time and see if that void is there. You might have a void about 12 inches. You can fill the 12 inches, but at least you could occupy an inch, and then that void now becomes 11 inches. And somebody else would come and try to dig on the other side until a void eventually gets filled up. That is what we need. We still need work to be done regarding interpretations and delivering of messages from a biblical perspective. Unfortunately, some persons should just not be at the helm of interpreting things to impart to others. What made you such an authority? What standardized testing you went through? And I think that we have a long way to go in terms of setting down some standards. And we need to take the church environment much more serious than we are currently doing. The church is an integral part of structuring our society. And don't feel like it shall be a structure alone. There must also be texture within that structure. And we should have a common denominator so expansive that the little you have on the periphery is just a matter of small differential from the nucleus. The common denominator with respect to biblical teaching should occupy 99%. That overlap 99%. And like I said, a little on the periphery, just a matter of how people choose to put them over. Because the day would come, we would hope that a common denominator is 100%. But like I said, people interpret things differently. You could say, don't touch me. Somebody could touch you, you could say, don't. They touch you again, they say, stop. And if you increase the rate at which the person is touching you, it would sound like you're saying, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. As if you're enjoying the person touching you. Whereas, you took your time and you said, don't. Touch you again, you say, stop. And if you continue with that rate, the message would simply mean discontinue. But you quicken the pace, the same set of words, you quicken the pace. Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. Meaning for whatever reason you're receiving utility from it and you want them to continue. So one could be discontinued, the other one could be continued. But guess what? If you put it on paper with the appropriate punctuations, the message would be had. That is what punctuation is for. And likewise, you could interpret things from the Bible in a way that remains nebulous to others. And I say we should be working towards an expansive common denominator. Let us take a break.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is one? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear Nor Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is one? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. Enjoy Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear nor favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Welcome back to Fear Nor Favor. Now, let us look at farmers. I listened to a session with some farmers making mention of their challenges that they cannot get their produce out there. And I found it very interesting because one of the issues was that the price of the local produce, agricultural produce, is too high. The farmer rebutted and said, no, farmers been selling the produce steadily now for close to 30 years at the same price. The problem what happened, he indicated, was that they sell to retailers, ton hands, and that is where the profit margins would be added to what the farmers them had initially. I sell you something for 30 cents, and I've been going on for the past 30 years, plus or minus a penny, so between 29 and 31 cents. And the persons who are buying to go to sell to the ultimate consumer, they might be selling it for 38 cents, 40 cents. And then you claim that the price is too high. But the farmers defended themselves. And I understand where they were coming from. So the local consumer now is saying, look, if the price of the local produce is so high, we might as well go to the supermarkets to buy at a cheaper price. That is mixed up with some challenges in between there. Because I think that if consumers were educated sufficiently well to know that the extra penny on the local produce is no major sacrifice when come to preserving their health, then they would rather to buy the local produce than those coming from outside. The durability of our local produce would have been manifested in many ways. You buy carrots from our farmers. You buy carrots that came in. You leave them on the fridge for a period of time. And when you go back, by the time the foreign carrots would have deteriorated by almost 90%, our local carrots are still standing firm. Maybe would have lost about a 5% in texture and whatever other necessary component. And that goes to show that we have quite a high quality set of provisions and fruits that are produced around here. What can we do to help the farmers? What can we do? Instead of buying limited supply, maybe the persons by the hotels, the restaurants, they feel, look, if I go solely into purchasing from the local farmers. To what extent can that be sustained? I got 150 pounds of potato last week. That would finish within a week. Next week I could get 150. That finishes within another week. The next week when I want now, I could only get 75 pounds, 60 pounds, 50 pounds. And the next time, I might not be able to get anything at all. But that would not be good for the people's business. Because it's not about continually getting it. It's continuously getting it. Can our farmers manage to reassure the purchaser who usually purchase in bulk and willing to purchase in bulk, if they can get the assurance and reassurance that it would be sustained for a long time? That could be part of the issue. Because we have to be smart, If they cannot be reassured of that, they have quite a number of sources overseas that they can make sure that happens. And they could bring in such bulk that they can have a good amount around. But when our people go out to dine and maybe test the quality of what they are eating, if there's a way to do it, they would realize that we are not getting our money's worth. Now, let us suppose they are faced by that particular factor that is bottlenecking their contractual arrangements on a long-term basis. You have 10 farmers. They're going to need X amount. So if one farmer cannot produce that on a continuous basis, you get 3 of them do the first batch. Then the next 3 would be responsible for the second batch. That is in the name of continuity. And then the next 4 now would continue. So time you come back to the first batch, they don't start to build back up their supply. Build back up, build back up. So then between those 10 farmers, they'll be able to sustain the demand over an extended period of time. But if you just have 1 or 2 farmers trying to do that, chances are that they might have a time when the job short, job very, very short, or just don't exist at all. So they would have to, apart from forming the association and alliances, they have to plan within themselves. How can we achieve this? And only after they do that, they strategize as to how they could sustain it for an extended period of time. And next thing is that when you are marketing your products or your produce, you have to do comparative marketing, comparative advertisement. I produce in A, they produce in A. But you got to be willing to talk about the negative aspects associated with your competitors' produce. You just don't go out and talk nicely about yours. Yes, it sounds nice. But how does it compare to the competition? If your competition is the overseas market, the importation bill high, that is your competition, overseas market. What can you say as a group to the potential consumers who would basically pave the way forward? And they will patronize whoever could convince them. You convince them of the quality of yours, and you convince them of the lack of quality of the competition. And thus, somewhere in between there, you persuade them to buy your produce. Advertisement is about calling down the quality of your competition. And there are so many ways in which local farmers can call down the quality of those stuff that is being imported. Durability, texture, and above them all, lack of preservative. We don't have to preserve our locally produced products, agricultural products, in order for them to last long, stand the test of time. We don't have to. But we can say, to survive these long journeys getting here, those stuff will have to be preserved to a certain extent in order for them to first of all reach the supermarket and then to stay on the shelves for a reasonable period of time. You can counter it that way. Somebody might say, so what? So you have to go on to impress upon them that these chemicals that they use in the preservation of these foodstuffs coming from overseas are carcinogenic, meaning that they cause cancer. And maybe you can say, look at it. Look at how many cases of cancer we now have in our society. The cancer didn't drop out the sky. Even though a case can be had for certain things, but we're not going there. Is what we consume, either through our mouths, through our nostrils, or through our skins. Now, regarding products, agricultural products, of course, it would be through our mouths. What are we eating? Did you go and do a research and come up with the physiological properties of the preservative that they are using? Physiological properties mean how it would affect the human being, the consumers. Physiological being, their very being, what they're made up of, how they function, how everything gets on inside in unison within their bodies. If you're going to consume those products with the carcinogenic preservatives, then they go inside your body and they cause the cells in different areas to reproduce uncontrollably. Basically, and that is what cancer is all about. Body would have lost control over the multiplication, division of certain cells. And they have things that would act as catalysts to induce such uncontrolled division. Very much present within the preservatives. So you have to go on a campaign. Educate people. Let them know which products are better. And they must be amply supported. What can our government do, barring messing with international conventions, trying to be overly protective? We can find other ways, subtle ways, to be protective of our farmers without infringing on other persons' intention to trade freely with us Education. Education is key. Let people know why A as opposed to B or as opposed to C. If you educate them, they would just go your way, They would come your way quickly and they would stay. Because you have to also go on and let them know, having fall prey to cancer, the expensive method of trying to preserve you for as long as possible would be outside of your budgets. You get a bill for $105,000 after leaving the hospital. I mean, where are you going to get the money to pay that? We have an oncology department, but things up there very, very, very expensive. And as such, measures were taken to reduce the amount that persons would have to pay. A lot of us around here do not have insurance that would take care or offset most of those expenses for us. So it would fall right back on us. So even though our life might have been able to be preserved for the next 20, 25 years, we deteriorate fast because we cannot afford the treatment. Some of us with a clear conscience, we tell our children, doesn't make sense, save it. Save it for the children and the grandchildren. And some people just chop their hands and resign their efforts. So we have to go that far to let them know after the foolish consumption of heavily laden preservative food, then there is an extended price to be paid. And it is simple as that. Sometimes too you could put policies in place, whether directly or indirectly or subtly. You could put policies in place to say things that can be produced in St. Kitts. You put some kind of restriction on the importation. We could produce ABCD. Well, we ain't importing ABCD. Or if we do, the overall amount that we have locally produced and imported, they will come up to the 100%. But locally produced must have 80% of the share. You could say downright, the 100% must come from locally produced stuff. So don't bring in any Z when we can produce Z in St. Kitts. We got to try to protect our farmers. They're being discouraged. A lot of things happening out there. We have foolish wars being going on. I don't even know how these superpowers really operate. It come like they're afraid of each other. I just wish that St. Kitts had some nuclear weaponry, and maybe we could have been get a bigger part of the bargain. The only nations that they're endowed with nuclear substances tend to be respected around here. Where you think America just can get up and attack Russia if they feel like they're so unfairly attacking Ukraine? Everybody afraid of the nuclear energy. Some of them I just wish that we were blessed that way, not to create war with anybody, but to demand things and get them, and do what we have to do without fear of people retaliating. We have to understand, with those silly wars going on all over, the time might come when we just cannot get things to our shores or to our ports for an extended period of time. And a reality check could be, if we do not have any boats coming here, how long can we sustain ourselves? How many months? I can't say years because that is not possible. How many months can we comfortably sustain ourselves without importation. If you were to start today, how long would we be able to sustain ourselves? And then we might start to take agriculture seriously. Those are the questions that we have to ask. Same as if you have freedom. People in Singis can't even get a flight to go where they want. Sometimes you got to go 10 times the distance you want to go to come back to the distance where you really want to be. So we have problems even getting around, much less when problems are created for our foodstuff to come from wherever they are imported from. We can feel the squeeze. There had a period of time when you go in the supermarkets and the shelves them empty. Some of them had on cobweb and all. Empty. And then I said, well, chauvinist is it? Let me go back in town and see. Come back in town in the same parallel situation. The shelves them were empty for an extended period of time. That was a wake-up call for us. A wake-up call. I don't know why we do not restructure something like Simaco. So once the farmers are certain that there is a place to sell the goods and get their monies in a timely manner, then they would go for it. Farmers ain't going to produce stuff in any abundance when they're not even sure if they would get a sale. They're not even certain that they will get a sale. We have to protect them. Yes, we involve in trade with other places and they could carry restrictions on us too. But we have to find our subtle ways of doing it. And like I said, education is one. Inform people, which is better. And until we can come around to do that, the farmers would continue to suffer. It would have to be a system, not a few occasions of you doing things. Yes, we had the agricultural exhibition or fair. That was a spike. Some farmers made a little bit more than what they would normally make. But that was for 2 days. What happened to the other 362, 363, 364 days? They want it on a consistent basis. Already we have a situation where not much young persons want to go and till the soil because they would have paralleled that to slavery, where our foreparents had to be in the dirt doing whatever. Some people don't even want to plant a seed in the backyard. Memories of slavery still haunting them and incarcerating their efforts. Now, if that is the case and we have a few who would have braved the mindset and go out and produce, how could we not encourage them? How could we not? And maybe people would have to try to understand that farming is more than tilling the soil and putting on a seed and waiting for it to grow. They have different aspects. We could get into agro-processing, marketing, financing, bookkeeping. We used to have an agronomy department that really worked with farmers. That was during the time of sugarcane. Why these people just cannot be on board still? To assist the farmers. Because we're giving the students them the impression that it's only going in the hot sun and planting seed and weeding this and weeding that. We need to send the correct message that there's a wider landscape than the one that is perceived of for young people to get involved in agriculture. We need that. And even coming on to the importation, they have something called genetically modified organisms. We should be spreading that. That is an ill. Genetically modified organisms, they have the benefits, but they also have the issues with respect to human consumptions. They had some corn and the cob, that were genetically modified in the States, and they didn't offer them to the residents in the States. They exported them to Caribbean countries. And we had to go for them. We relish that. We see it. We like it. But we don't know the intricacies of producing these stuff. A lot of us like to ask for corn and the cob. All sort of stuff with corn, not knowing that these were genetically modified in many instances. If we spread that ill narrative about imported food stuff, that can help to reduce the importation bill. And once things are not coming here, then our farmers would benefit from that aspect. We just have to have a group of people whose intention and whose purpose would be to bring out all the adverse effects of the food that are being imported. You see, but sometimes a country, a poor country, they always get disadvantaged because the people who own those big businesses, you don't know what part they play in financing campaigns for various political parties, whether now or way in the past or just immediately past the other day. We don't know. So even if we have to take action to try and restrict the stuff them that they're bringing in and promoting more of the local stuff, it might backfire on them. They might reduce the donation that they made, whether they made it on top of a table or under a table. They might threaten to decrease employment. So your unemployment level will just rise. There are so many things that we are susceptible to as a poor country. That's something we know what's going on wrong, and we would like to have it discontinued, but it's a repercussion that we are mindful of. But somebody got to take the bull by the horns. Don't bring in A, B, C, D. They can be locally produced, so do not bring them in. You bring them in, they shall be confiscated, and you would not be compensated for the tune of the amount that was confiscated from you. Make it clear. In order for you to rule effectively, you're going to lose a few friends, but you're going to gain a lot too. You might even win the hearts of enemies. We cannot allow our farmers not to make it. Because despite the fact that not too many new persons going into farming, we have a good amount of persons there. And the average age is reasonable on the low side. Yes, you have some outliers on the extreme ends, but we got some reasonably young farmers. We want to use them now to induce younger people to get into farming and to understand the technology. So where you do not have the land space, you can still produce in bulk. You might be able to do something in your yard, and despite the lack of land space and soil, you can still produce in abundance a particular product. How do we teach people these things? And we have something at the CFBC. So how do we extend it outside the school environment into the communities? We need to get these things going. At one time, they used to have extension officers going out to assist people to make sure that the yield would be high. The pesticides application controlled. Because as much as we complain about the imported stuff, we too have to get under control. The timing got to be right when you're going to apply certain chemicals to products that you intend to sell to people. At one time, it was my understanding that the Taiwanese used to assist in going to take samples from persons on the roadside and testing them to see what level of chemicals might be associated with the product at that particular juncture. I don't know if it happens still, but it would be nice to educate the farmers. Well, most of them should know. They don't know by experience. Somebody has given them the information quickly. They didn't have to go to any university to do it. Some of them learn by osmosis, being around other people, or just learn from experience. But whichever way was the mode of being educated, you must know that you must sell your people safe stuff to consume. We have to. So whatever we have to do to assist these farmers, because nothing beats eating fresh fruits, and vegetables. The discussion was had about, yes, you have the market place. And I listened the debate just this week, and persons were saying that Princess Street, where you have the school apex, they were using the fact that it is already blocked off, so the traffic between there was considerably slowed. Now, that is a problem because on another program, you heard persons appealing to the government to expedite the building or whatever they're building and open back up the street running from east to west, from west to east. Well, west to east because you can't travel in the opposite direction, leaving over by the government headquarters. That street been blocked off for a very, very long time. But the persons were saying, since the street is already blocked off, use Princess Street where farmers and guys could come and sell fresh fruits and vegetables to the general public. Yes, a decision was made to take people off the street because they were forcing pedestrians to step into the street, and sometimes maybe a vehicle mirror might hit them in the face and the shoulder, whatever. We're trying to prevent that. A person called in and indicated that to make Princess Street the area where these people would be vending would not be nice because it is so close roundabout. Well, I beg to differ a little. I beg to differ. It's not like people coming up 4th Street and then they're able to turn left onto Princess Street. They cannot turn left. So I don't see where the physical hindrance would come from. Yes, you'll have vehicles. Well, let us suppose that you get back the flow of traffic where people could go down Church Street, come up the Little Walwyn Street and come across. I said the Little Walwyn Street, the name might not be the particular one, but where the Little Walwyn business is on the western side. You come up there and then you come across Princess Street. That is how vehicles now move, and vehicular traffic is done like that. So you're still traveling from west to east. And when you go to the end of that road, you could only turn left, because you cannot turn down 4th Street and go down by the clock area, the roundabout. So there's not much complexity involved with maneuvering the traffic as you come across Princess Street. Because you stop and you go up. So I don't see why the maybe even closeness to the roundabout is an issue. Because it's not like you're coming around the roundabout and then you could turn left to go westward along Princess Street. You could only come eastward and then turn up. I would like to support something like that. That they make it what you call a fresh food avenue. And people occupy across there. So you're in town and you don't have it in the smoothie or you don't have it in the greasy food and you just want a piece of watermelon or some other product, a mango, something to eat for your lunch or even a quick breakfast, or when you get a break, you go there and you pick up something. I believe that would be a brilliant idea to pronounce Princess Street as fresh fruit and vegetable avenue. And I believe it would work. But the problem is now, is limited space across there. So how would you allocate the various spaces along Princess Road to the persons who would be willing to be a part of it? How do you do it? Because do I occupy a spot and come back the next day looking for that same spot? Do I mark it as mine? Do I leave some object or something in that position so that I come back and occupy the same said position? Then that would be a bit difficult because it would appear to some that it might be surgically discriminating. You picking and choosing who to go where. Or would it just be a first come, first serve situation? Next thing you end up with everybody coming first. What would you do? It would be a brilliant idea. But one thing we have to understand too, there are some businesses across there. So how much would allowing the fresh fruit and vegetable avenue, to what extent? What time of the day? Would it be a daily thing? Would it be every other day? Maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Because you have business places across there. Are you going to put up yellow lines? And the yellow lines mean do not put up any stall or anything there. Would you be allowed to put up semi-permanent structures? Or you just put up something that you can come with and leave with? And we have a problem with that because even though on our beaches, I work in the Department of Environment, and we tell people they must not put down anything on our beaches that they cannot leave with. Do not put down any structure on the beach that you cannot leave with. And this was based on the dynamics of the waves. The waves then would come up, deposit whatever sand that came up with them, and then percolate downwards, or some of it might go back down on the shore. But once it reaches up, the water would go down and the sand would be deposited on top. Now, when you put down a permanent structure, and so that you don't have space at the base, so the water just comes up, hit on whatever object or structure you have, and just rush back down with the sand that was intended to be deposited on the seashore. And that is where you have the Frigate Bay area suffered a lot from that. Because it is amazing to look back and see that was part of NCPA. You just couldn't put down permanent structures. Now over there fill up with permanent structures. So it seems as if some policy might have changed, or those in authority decide to, because even though you have laws, it is still at the discretion of the minister in some cases. So you could say don't put down any two-story building here, but then you might go and have a conversation with the Prime Minister. You might take it to Cabinet and they work out within the best interest of whoever and whatever, they would allow it. because you go figure when you see a house almost basically inside of the water, and those things were strictly against the laws, environmental laws, that you must only build within certain distance from the high water mark. High water mark meaning that when the waves them come up, the furthest point that it would go inland, that is the high water mark. And then from there you measure the distance, and you shall not put down any structure within that. You could put outside. But then we see structures within the high water mark. Should have been on the other side of the high water mark. But people change. Some people receive whatever they received to do whatever they had to do. So everything just gone haywire. You can't hold on to any policy. When I go over to Frigate Bay and I see all those buildings that at one time could not have been there, you don't know what politicians receive to allow those things to happen. They might have become a millionaire, semi-millionaire, quarter millionaire, whatever, by allowing certain things to go somebody else's way so that they could get a little commission. And a little commission could mean a lot. Where did all these structures come from over at the Frigate Bay Beach in the area, the Timothy Beach, go backwards down here to the west? What policy change did we have? It is so unfortunate. And we talk about preservation of beaches. You know how much money the government would have spent on trying to bring back, rejuvenate Frigate Bay? One time they gave a company from some place some big monetary contract to restore Frigate Bay Beach. Then look at it. They bought some pumps. They pumped the sand from several hundred feet outwards to sea. And they had this sand deposited on the beach. And looked nice for a while. But guess what? The quality of the sand did not withstand the elements of the weather. So the same sand that they spent so much money pumping on shore just disappeared once again. And that was hundreds of thousands of dollars. How could we have been so foolish? Where are the engineers that we're supposed to have? How can you put such very fine sand on the beach to be exposed to the elements of the weather? The sand that you took, they came from underneath, close on the seabed, very fine sand. And then the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we invested, boy, so many things could have been done. Last year, high school could have been constructed. Molyneux Primary School could have been constructed. So much money we would have wasted in the Frigate Bay area. And that's a fact. That is when I started to lose it and felt very low as a clinician working in the Department of Environment as project officer and education officer. One time I went to talk to a gentleman who might put down a structure over there. And I got to confront the man because I got a lot of pride in my sinkets. And the man basically tell me that he got the government in his pocket. I mean, what is that? What did he mean by I have the government in my pocket? Then after that, the whole place went haywire, brother. So that is how it is. And it will continue like that until we educate our people, formulate policies, and stick to them. I don't believe environmental issues should be left to the discretion of the Minister of Environment. I think it's Preservation is bigger than that. Bigger than whoever minister it is. Whoever minister it was. Or whoever said the ministers they were. Figure be gone out of control. And then after they fail with that now, they put down this, because this man was complaining about the destruction close to his property over Timothy Beach. So they went and they put down a breaker. Well. They put down a breaker because the man complained that the area close to his thing was being eroded. But they put down a breaker based on the dynamics of the sea. Instead of the sand coming up, going up on the shore and be deposited, even they might have taken that time for the accretion, the rebuilding of the beach to take place. That was the most natural thing. You got to build with nature, whether you're doing it on land or in sea. So they put down the breaker there, the pier that you saw there. And what happened? You had a beach developing within a beach. So where you did not want the beach to be, you accumulated, the sand accumulated just on the outward side of the wall breaker that they had. And on the next side, where the sand ought to be deposited, man, you step in there and you're stepping on stone. Because no sand coming there to be deposited to cover back those stones. We have engineers, brother. And I believe in taking pride in what I studied, what I understand properly. And if I cannot be of help, I would say I cannot help. But I'm not going to study marine engineering and this, that, and go and make those foolish decisions and cause my government to spend money uselessly. Uselessly. Over and over as well. So I'm appealing to the engineers that we have. I know sometimes we have a way in St. Kitts of giving projects to people who don't know a thing about engineering. And then that person or those persons would subcontract others to do what they have to do. The problem around here is effective project management. And not just project management, effective engineering project management. You cannot have somebody who merely looked on and learned from osmosis to manage any engineering project when they don't have the theory to go along with it. They saw and they learn. But then there are some underlying theoretical issues that you would have to understand in order to properly effectuate your managerial function. We have people managing engineering projects, don't have a clue about engineering. Well, how could you manage an engineering project? You don't know if the people have 2 degrees. You don't know if something is too thick. You don't know how it will withstand the dynamics of the water. You don't know how the wind, whatever rain would impact it. You know, it is so sickening sometimes. I did project management. So give me the job to manage this project. Yes, you could manage several projects. But engineering projects would call for engineers, people who specialize in engineering project management. There's a big difference. Big difference. So we have to be very careful. Engineering is like having a doctorate. The extent to which you have to subject yourself to understanding so many things, it can be parallel to having a doctorate, like a medical doctor. But if you have it and the application is awful, you're not doing any good for your country. persons were discussing the housing issue that they have and the project that the government is about to embark on. Now, I'm going to stay out of that until I have a better understanding, because there's an absence of information. And like we say, I always say, in the absence of information, speculation would rise. They are inversely proportional. So I would delay my discussion on that. Even though I can see certain things, I want to be cocksure with what was said and what is going to be. When they get there, we'll discuss that. But then you have persons who are saying that since we do not have spaces on the ground, we should go upward. But that is all right. Nothing wrong with that. Go upwards. Use the space we have above. But now, before you do that, common sense will tell you you have to do some analytical work on the soil profiling. You have to make sure what is the content of the soil as you go downwards. What is the distance above sea level? A lot of people don't understand that they got a lot of places in town below sea level. Right? Because they see in buildings, yes. We could recall when they tried to do the government, the development bank, National Bank, and the courthouse, how it took quite a while, because as they go down, they're already below sea level, and it's just water and more water and more water and more water. So we have to be mindful of the sea level. We got to be mindful of the texture and the composition of the soil, how much weight the soil could take. Because if you put a one-story house down, that is okay. You go up another one, then that structure becomes more heavy on the said soil, piece of land that you had. So instead of just having one thing and you go up and you go up and you go up, they must also know that when you put up a building that high and you actively manage the height of that building above sea level, it changes because it just starts to move downwards. It would move downwards. In the US, they realize that in certain areas, going downwards, you go up and you go up, you want to go up 20-something floors. Man, we could go horizontal, but build complexes, family complexes. Why would we want to go up? Is the weight of the house reasonable enough for the component we have in terms of the soil? And we have to think. And the more you go up vertically, is the further you move away from stability. And the more you go up, is the more difficult it becomes in diagnosing sewage leakages, plumbing problems. And then what? You have the place like in a stench for months and sometimes years. Look at the garden housing project. The wastewater system down there went bad for years. Years upon years. Persons were confronted with the onslaught of stench. And I'm absolutely certain that at some point in time you had cross-contamination with respect to potable water and sewage water. The system wasn't working properly. The wastewater system wasn't working properly. I can recall going to look for a gentleman and questioning him about the wastewater system down at the Irish Town Bay Road. And he said, no little boy gonna come here, come ask me nothing, you know. I said, no, that is not the issue. I'm trying to assist you. And I tell him I examine the wastewater treatment plant. And it is obvious from what I'm seeing, the age of the sludge and everything else, that that plant was not being managed to the extent for what he's being paid for. And maybe that he collected money under false pretense. He called me in a room, tell me let's chat. All of a sudden he want the little boy in the room with him and we chatted. And I said, man, just be honest. When last you really service? He said over a year and a half ago. But he was being paid money. You understand? That is why the system went so bad. And that is why down there used to have that stench for so long. And it needed some new equipment down there. Various governments were very slow in replacing what they had. And I think was it after the Labour government came back in, the one that ended in 2015, that an attempt was made to purchase and get that system back up and running. Because the funny thing about that, you had raw sewage going into the Bastia Harbour in the vicinity of Irish Town. And because of this sea dynamics, it used to make its way down to Fisherman's Wharf and that area. Sometimes it would go around to the Limekeel Bay. The Limekeel Bay already had its issues with wastewater coming from up by the hospital area. So persons were, because they had an outfall is where you put in a piece of pipe and whatever comes down, you put it at a certain distance out in the seawater. And before it could impact anybody, it would have been diluted, apparently to insignificance. But the sea dynamics was almost never in full support of that. So you had persons utilizing those two-bay areas and maybe very often came up with infections. Infection in every part of the body that had a hole where that type of bacteria could have gone. So people had to be very, very mindful of letting the children bathe in those areas. At one time, the Frigate Bay area in the vicinity where they had the Sand Hill, you had a similar situation there because the water coming from certain projects over there, the effluent was of a very, very poor quality, very, very, very poor quality. But yet, people carry their children there to bathe. They don't know any better. Nobody would put up any sign because it would be bad for tourism. But then we had our local people going there more often than tourists. And God forbid, we know how many persons might have gotten sick there and just did not know that there is where it started. So the Environmental Health Department, fellas got to do a little more field work and go and test the waters. At one time, they used to go around in some boat and collect samples and test for so. I don't even know if they do that still. I know you could go on land and where the effluent is coming out, you collect a sample. But then something you have raw sewage going into the water. Or the quality of the effluent was so poor that it could create a diseased environment. I could remember this gentleman, a doctor, Dr. Alcalado, came from Cuba. And as the project officer for the Department of Environment, I went around with him to the various beaches and we did an assessment of the beaches. And he said to me, he would be surprised that we don't have people getting babies that are deformed based on what we had going on down in the Bastia roadstead there with those supermarkets and whatever else. I had to one time go there and shake up one or two of the supermarkets. Shake them up, really shake them up. Don't tell me about come sit down over lunch. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in preserving the health of our people. And that is why some people maybe would have been paid certain things to ignore things like that. I can recall going around Frigate Bay area to do some analytical work and to observe some youngsters doing what they're supposed to do. And you had a stench. And I decided, well, let me go closer and try to see where the concentration of these molecules were. And it was from a particular area. And I tell the man that he had to correct this and correct that. And the man had an attitude. So I stepped in and I tell him that he has a week to have it corrected. And the way he put his face, I said, I bring it down to 3 days. I've never seen somebody got parts for a particular apparatus so quickly. And he was so proud. He called, he said, I have the parts and they're going to put it in tomorrow. And all of a sudden, you just got to be hard on people. You cannot have him polluting the environment, even through the air where people got to breathe in these molecules. You don't know what's going on with people. And he just had to do what he had to do, and he corrected it. I don't mind making enemies for the sake of my people's health, because I'm going to let you have it, and you're going to do it how it's supposed to be done. And I think that is what is lacking sometimes. The field work itself, the detection, the testing, and then trying to remedy the situation without fear nor favor. And that is what we want. Let us take a break and we'll be back.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is man? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKitts.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear Nor Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is man? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKitts.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear Nor Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Welcome back to Fear Nor Favor. There's an issue that is brewing, and it has polarized our population. Not much persons stoic, indifferent, or sitting on the fence with neutrality with respect to this issue. I wanted to leave it until a more convenient time, because I have confidence that our good Prime Minister, Dr. Joe, would address it even before he leaves for the diaspora, because some people are taking it for granted. And they must understand, because being at the center of the peace program, I know the effort that had to be made in order to achieve a certain degree of peace amongst the previously warring gentlemen. Now, the Explorers Club, like I would have indicated before, is like a circuit breaker. You have persons, the youngsters, being taught ways, policies, in order for them to conduct themselves in nice ways and to stay on the straight and narrow. That is very integral. But I'm still convinced that there are persons, a large percentage of persons, who do not quite understand the significance of that concept and the rolling out of the materialization and functioning of the Explorers Group. There is something brewing. It would have led to frustration, and persons are taking sides. If we were to have a televised meeting between the head teacher of the Molyneux Primary School, Suzette Cannony, and Inspector Rosemary Isles, leader of the police unit that is operating from the common building that is called the Explorers Club building, because that building was designed for use by the Explorers Club. The idea, the concept of the Explorers Club came about to the hard work and visionary Inspector Isles. She would have put a lot into it. She has some officers. They too would have complimented her pretty well in putting out the hard work. That club is about maybe 1,400 strong. And that's a lot. If you could have 1,400 youngsters following the straight and narrow, being taught, being encouraged, being discouraged from carrying out antisocial behavior, that is a good percentage of our young people who we seem to have under control. We have the cooperation of their parents and guardians. And the club has been doing pretty well. Now, if there is an issue, and like I said, we had it televised and we heard from them utilizing an objective mediator, we would realize that there's absolutely no need for this eventuality that we're experiencing to have effectuated. Just have the two of them sitting down, discussing the areas of concerns that could have been ironed out in 10 minutes. And both individuals would have been smiling, embracing, and would have wondered why this wasn't done soonest. Now that it has spiraled out of control, the only person who holds the key to reconciliation is Dr. Terence Jew. Because that building is a government building, yes, but it was given for the purpose of hosting the Explorers Club. Unfortunately, there was a fire at the Molyneux or Joshua Obadiah Williams Primary School, and Inspector Els quickly jumped up and said she is willing to have the normal running of the compound disrupted to a certain extent to facilitate the school children from Molyneux Primary School. She went as far as going to the former Prime Minister, Dr. Harris, to indicate that willingness. She was asked if she was certain, and without hesitation she said yes. And they were accommodated. Children would be children, and at times they would do things contrary to what you would want, what you would prefer. But the onus is still on us to ring it in the ears every day that, look, we are begging a shelter. We are being accommodated. Maybe I should not have used begging, but we are being granted the opportunity to still conduct our classes. So therefore, we have to be mindful that we must take care of the property. You have to tell them, and even if you tell them every day, 10 times a day, things will still happen, given the nature of children. So compromises, sacrifices would have had to be had. And we need not to resign our efforts in encouraging them to keep the place tidy. Do not break anything. Do not mark up the wall. But it would still happen. But once the effort was made to do that on a regular basis, and one or two slipped through, you could understand. Now, if there were issues, I know a little bit more than most. And I could tell you that it could have been really frustrating when you talk to one or talk to the other instead of talking to both of them at the same time. I do not wish to go deeper into it, but I think for the benefit of those children and society by extension and various communities, there must be a resolve with common understanding. And once that is done, the Explorer Club would continue to go from strength to strength. And we must be mindful that the persons whose brainchild it was must not be disrespected like that. Yes, it is government building. The Explorers Club falls under the immediate supervision of Rosemary Isles Inspector. And then you have ACP Adams, communication. And it falls under the Chief of Police, the Ministry of National Security. So it is a national security compound. A helping hand was extended to the Ministry of Education. Because, of course, you can delegate responsibilities, but you cannot delegate accountability. So likewise, accountability would have been thrusted upon Prime Minister. And there's an urgent need, there's the urgency of now in resolving this issue before another day passes by, because of the inherent significance of that organization. I do not wish for Inspector Isles to put in any retirement or resignation due to frustration. I hope everybody can count to 100. It used to be 10 months ago. And see if we can get it going the way it's supposed to be going. But if you subject somebody to an overwhelming position of being humiliated, the task might not be that easy. So I'm appealing for tolerance, perseverance, and understanding and sensitivity in trying to resolve the issue. And you can rest assured that it will be resolved. The Prime Minister is somebody like that, and he wants it to be resolved because he believes in the Explorers Club. and he's going to do his utmost best to ensure that the Explorers Club continues and that no one individual is disadvantaged over or in preference to the other. But then within the normal functionality of the compound, that the emphasis is placed where it is supposed to be placed and accommodation is heightened for the children's sake. But at the same time, you have police officers, you have a whole unit working there. And sometimes it's a give and take. Common understanding, communication. And communication must be timely. I wish the Molyneux Primary School well in regaining its momentum in preparing the students for this last term, especially those who would be moving on to high school and those who would be moving on to a higher grade. I also hope that more concerted effort can be executed into rebuilding the Molyneux Primary School. And I do hope that the frustration level of Inspector Els would be minimal going forward, and that she resume the rhythm and the enthusiasm with which she would have birthed this idea and let the young people benefit even more going forward. I would like to end there, and I hope that we would have had a lovely program, and we're looking forward to our next program next week, Thursday. But most importantly, I'm looking for the resolving of the conflict between police officers and the school over at the Explorers building within short notice. Good night.
The opinions and statements made by the host and participants in this program are not those of the owners, advertisers, and management company of Sugar City FM 90.3, nor are such statements